The whispering shadows of an au pair. It was an idyllic home nestled on the outskirts of a small, quiet town, perfectly picturesque, surrounded by rolling hills and forests that seemed to stretch for miles. The Anderson family had recently moved in after a sudden and unexpected promotion for Mr. Anderson. Seeking a fresh start, they decided to hire an au pair to help with their two young children, Emma, a precocious 6-year-old, and Luke, an energetic 8-year-old. Madeline, a young woman from a distant town, had applied for the position. She had no family, no attachments, and no place to call her own. She was eager to escape her past, to find solace and purpose in a new setting. The Andersons, warm and welcoming, didn't hesitate to bring her into their home. The first evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and shadows crept along the walls, Madeline stood in front of the grand mirror in her room, admiring the antique furniture. The house was old, Victorian in style, with creaky floors and intricate woodwork. It smelled faintly of dust and something more unnerving. As she unpacked, she heard a soft knock on her door. It was Mrs. Anderson, the mother of the household. "We're just finishing up dinner, dear," Mrs. Anderson said with a warm smile. "We'd love for you to join us. It'll be nice for you to get to know the children better." Madeline smiled, eager to bond with her new family. Little did she know, the warmth of the family dinner would be short-lived. The next few days passed in a blur of routine, school runs, meal times, and helping with homework. However, Madeline began to notice something strange about Emma and Luke. At first, it was almost unnoticeable. A whispered conversation just beyond hearing. A glimpse of them staring at her from dark corners with vacant, knowing eyes. However, as time passed, their behavior grew more unsettling. One evening, as the children were getting ready for bed, Madeline noticed something chilling. Emma was sitting cross-legged on the floor, speaking in a low, raspy voice, though no one else was in the room. Her voice was too deep for a girl of her age, and her words seemed to float in the air, hanging there like an unseen presence. "She's watching. She knows you're never leaving." Madeline froze. "Who are you talking about, Emma?" Emma's wide eyes looked up at her, and she tilted her head to one side, grinning in a way that made Madeline's skin crawl. "You'll see her soon. She'll come for you." Madeline tried to shake off the unease, attributing it to the child's imagination. Later that night, as she tucked the children in, she couldn't ignore the feeling of being watched. The house was too quiet, too still. Then a faint sound from the hallway, soft whispers, like the rustling of paper. When Madeline opened her bedroom door, nothing was there. Still, the whispers lingered, echoing in the empty space. By the following week, Madeline's nights became filled with restless sleep. The whispers never stopped. Every time she closed her eyes, it felt as though something was watching her, just on the edge of her vision. There was something in the dark, something that didn't belong. The children, Emma especially, seemed to know things they couldn't possibly know. One night, after tucking the children into bed, Madeline went downstairs to the kitchen to get a glass of water. As she passed the living room, she froze as she saw someone standing at the far end of the room. It was a woman, dressed in tattered black clothes, her face hidden in shadow. Madeline's heart stopped. The woman's figure seemed to melt into the darkness, vanishing without a trace. Panic surged through her as she rushed upstairs, her pulse quickening. "Who's down there?" she called out to the children, her voice trembling. "They're not here, Madeline," Emma's voice answered from the top of the stairs, her voice eerily calm. "She's with you." Madeline's was terrified when she realized Emma wasn't looking at her. Her eyes were fixed on the corner of the hallway, where the shadows gathered. The following morning, Madeline was exhausted. Her nerves were frayed, and her mind raced with questions. She needed answers. Desperate, she searched the house, looking for any clue that could explain the eerie occurrences. It was then that she stumbled upon an old photograph hidden in the attic, buried beneath a pile of dusty old books. The photo was of a woman, dark hair, hollow eyes, and beneath it was a name written in faded ink, Lucinda Carrington. Madeline shivered. Lucinda Carrington. The name sounded familiar, but she couldn't place it. As she looked closer at the photograph, she realized something chilling. The woman in the photo was the same one she had seen standing in the living room. Madeline's stomach dropped. She rushed downstairs and confronted Mrs. Anderson. "Who is Lucinda Carrington?" Madeline demanded. Mrs. Anderson's face turned pale. "What do you know about her?" she asked, her voice tight with fear. Madeline told her everything. The whispers, the visions, the woman in the living room. Mrs. Anderson's face grew grim. Lucinda Carrington was the original au pair. "She came to us years ago, before you, but she disappeared one night without a trace. No one knew what happened to her, but some say she was never really gone. They say she never left the house." Madeline's world tilted into madness as the truth began to unfold. Lucinda Carrington hadn't disappeared. She had been consumed by something dark, something sinister that had taken hold of the house. The whispers, the shadows, the strange behavior of the children, they were all signs of the evil that lurked within these walls. That night, as the house fell into silence, Madeline felt the cold touch of Lucinda's presence again. It was no longer a distant whisper. It was right behind her, breath on her neck. She spun around, but nothing was there, only the oppressive weight of the air that seemed to suffocate her. Suddenly, the children's laughter echoed from upstairs. Madeline rushed to their room, but when she opened the door, she was met with an empty room. Emma and Luke were gone. In their place, a figure stood in the shadows, a woman in black, her face hidden. "You're mine now," Lucinda's voice echoed from the darkness, her tone warped and twisted. Madeline backed away, heart pounding, but the door slammed shut behind her, trapping her inside. Madeline never saw daylight again. The house, once full of warmth and life, became a prison. Every night, Lucinda's whispers grew louder, pulling Madeline deeper into the shadows. And every day, Emma and Luke's eyes grew colder, more distant, as if they were no longer themselves, but mere vessels for the entity that had taken control. The villagers whispered about the strange happenings at the Anderson estate, but no one dared approach. The house had become a dark legend, a warning to those who dared to look too closely. And so, the cycle continued, as one au pair after another arrived, only to vanish without a trace, leaving behind nothing but whispers in the dark. The end, or is it